up this Sunday because we have some wonderful guests that will be adding to our music this week. Edie Evans-Hyde and Mike Hyde will be bringing their unique, intimate, and distinctive style as we learn all about the medicine that Dr. Jazz has to offer. My name is Fred Wooden. I serve as your preacher. I work alongside my clergy colleague, Christopher Rowe, and with all our other good friends, Phil Pletcher, who is our choral accompanist and is our prelude and postlude provider today, because Jonathan Took, our interim organist, is taking a bye week. We together want to offer you an hour that is contemplative and exciting and worth your presence. I want to tell you what goes on in the time that you're with us today, that not only are we holding worship, there is a time of fellowship afterward with coffee and friendship and ways to know about the church a little more. Things happen all the time. Next Sunday, for example, we are celebrating International Women's Day, festive worship, as it says right here, with different music, different voices, all sorts of ways to observe, note, celebrate, and honor the ministries of women in all their capacities and in all of our experiences. And there will be stuff afterward as well. That's a week from today. You will want to be here. We are doing other things in the future, but what's most important is that you are here today. Fountain Street Church is beginning its second 150 years of being present in Grand Rapids. It has been a challenging and liberal voice in religion since it was organized in 1869, and we are entering on the next era of this church's life as we start 2020. With that in mind, if you've been here for the first time, if this is your first visit, come and find me afterward. I'll be glad to tell you anything you want to know. But more important, meet the other people who are here. Our congregation varies in size and length, from those who have been here a day to those who have been there their whole lives. They each have beautiful stories to tell. And so, welcome to Fountain Street Church, a place where we are in the business of freeing minds, growing souls, and changing the world. Wherever you are in life's journey, however long you are with us, you belong here, and welcome to Fountain Street Church. Mr. Pletcher, could you gather our souls musically as we enter into our hour of worship? The music inspired me to look for words that came out of the Hispanic and Latin tradition, and I thought of these words by Ernesto Cardenal. The music of the spheres, harmonious like a harp. Its rhythms are the equal seasons, the beating of the heart, day and night, going and returning of birds, cycles of stars and corn, the mimosa that unfolds by day and folds up again by night, moon and tide, a single rhythm in planets, atoms, sea, apples that ripen and fall, the mind of Newton, melody, accord, arpeggios, the harp of the universe, unity behind apparent multiplicity. That is music. Beautiful tune and words from the genius of Duke Ellington and Billy Strayhorn, of whom you'll hear more in a little while. But I need you to sing now, because it is your blessing as a community that gives this place its spirit of worship. Join with one another and with your own heart as we sing Morning Has Broken, which is hymn number 38 in your gray hymn book.
beautiful morning has broken, and we deserve it. Gosh, it has been a busy week and day everywhere, and maybe you've experienced this too. But around here, we had a lot of events going on. There was one on Friday, there was one yesterday, and so when that happens, I'm not allowed to put up all the fabric because we've got rigging and scaffolding. Sometimes the users don't necessarily want all that fabric up there. And so it was one of those days where I thought, well, it's going to have to be done on Sunday morning. And here we are. But here's the purple. The purple has arrived. It's the next color in the sequence, which is, if you can remember, is the next color. And it's also Lent today for many Christian traditions that celebrate it, or practice it rather. And purple is a pretty significant color in the Lenten tradition. It's almost paradoxical. It can mean and symbolize mourning, mourning, sadness. And it can also mean royalty, and so it kind of bookends the Christian Lenten journey of mourning and loss, but also royalty and resurrection. But there's other things that purple can mean, right? It's a secondary color, and if you remember when we brought in orange, we talked about how things that are old and almost paradoxical can come to make something new and beautiful. Well, purple can be like that. Neurologically, the color red can stimulate, it can excite, it can inspire. And blue, well, blue can calm, it can bring you peace, stillness. And purple can be the balance between those two spaces. But what about spiritually and emotionally? Well, blue has often been used to symbolize wisdom and insight and clarity, intellect, and red, love, passion, sacrifice. But purple is between those two. It's the balance of love and wisdom. No matter how you look at this beautiful color, it invites us to live in the balance, doesn't it? To balance ourselves between the great practice of wisdom and intellect, but also love and generosity. Or to balance ourselves between being stimulated and excited, but also present and calm. My prayer for all of you is that you live in the purple space of balance this week.
What gift did you receive this morning? You all did. You all woke up. I say, if you wake up any morning, you already get 80%. You get a B just for being here. We don't always enumerate the gifts we receive. Each breath is a gift. Each moment that we did not create that comes to us is a gift. And so when we reach the offering, it is not just that you're giving, you're remembering that you have received gifts as well. So do that count your blessings thing for just a moment. Think of all the things that you did not earn that you already received this morning. All the things that will be present to you. Present as in present, getting a present. It's here, it's now. You can do that. When we take the offering at this church, it is a response to the gifts we have already received. It's not just a duty, which it is, but it's a delight to do that. So I'm going to ask you, what would be delightful to give this morning? If it is small or large, it really doesn't matter. Find something that is in your pocket that makes you smile to give. And if that's money, wonderful. If that's a mint in the bottom of your pocket that you've discovered, that's a good thing to give too. whatever is delightful that you have in your hands. Put that on the plate, because that delight is the gift we need to give and the gift the world needs to receive. With that in mind, our morning offering, an offering of delight, will be received, because if you don't mean it, it's not worth it. You could possibly conduct. Oh, that was cool. And it was fun. And it was so worthwhile. And a taste of where we're going this morning as I welcome my two other guest preachers, as it were, Edie Evans Hyde and Mike Hyde, who will help create a message this morning that comes from, well, let's say it comes from another part of the musical universe. I got to start by telling a story. All stories are more interesting than sermons. Like most children, when we went to bed as youngsters, it was always before we wanted to. Didn't you always, can I stay up a little later? And only years later did I realize that this was not about us getting more sleep. It was about letting Mom and Dad have some time to themselves. But back then, and it's now a number of years, it was not the TV we heard downstairs. It was the record player. And my dad would put on his favorite records, old 78 RPM discs. Can anyone under 50 even understand those words? 78 RPM discs. He would put on the hi-fi. It wasn't even stereo. And he'd put on his favorite music. And that was King Oliver and Bessie Smith and Kid Ory and plenty of Jelly Roll Morton, like this song that I remember from my youth. That song is Hello Central. Give me Dr. Jazz. He's got what I need, I'll say he has. When I'm feeling down and I got the blues, he's the one who makes me put on both my dancing shoes. This year, all my messages arise from music that has shaped my life. They are my scripture, and most of them have come from the book of Mozart and Brahms and Beethoven. But I also grew up with a New Testament of Jelly Roll Morton, Bessie Smith, Louis Armstrong. I grew up hearing that because that was my dad's music. And it too has shaped me. It took shape, that music, in New Orleans, and it was just last week there was Mardi Gras, so there's a little legitimacy to doing this right now. Back in the first decade or two of the 20th century, formed from the blues, from ragtime, from field hollers. And as black folk moved north during the Great Migration, they took it with them to places like Kansas City, St. Louis, Chicago, and New York, and they each formed their own style. When we lived in Brooklyn back in the 1990s, my father came to visit us, and he wanted to go to Ellis Island, not because our family came from Ellis Island, but because he was stationed there during the war for a time. He was in the Coast Guard, you see, and every few days they'd give him shore leave. And he would dash into Manhattan on the ferry, run up on the IRT into Harlem, and spend as much time as he could listening to folks like Louis Armstrong and Art Tatum and Fats Waller. Only after years later, even after he died, did I overhear a story told by my uncle that once he got into a little bit of trouble. And I do mean a little bit. He went up to Harlem and spent a long evening there, and I'm sure even as a 19 or 20-year-old, he had a drink or two. Almost every soldier and sailor in Manhattan got free food and drink. And he got on the subway and fell asleep and didn't wake up for a long time. In fact, when he finally woke up, he was lying on a subway seat looking up at all the strap hangers and realized he was in deepest, darkest Brooklyn. And he was overdue. He was AWOL. But he wasn't a bad boy. He hurried back to his station. He was a good man who had a good time one evening listening to Fats Waller, which is why that tune that we all know is applicable to him, because he may have been late, but he ain't misbehaving.
No one to talk with all by myself, no one to walk with, but I'm happy on the shelf. Ain't misbehaving, I'm saving my love for you, and you, and you, and you. I know for certain the one I love, I'm through with flirting, is you that I'm thinking of. Ain't misbehaving, I'm saving my love for you. Oh, like Jack Horner in a corner, don't go nowhere, what do I care? Your kisses are worth waiting for. Believe me, I don't stay out late, I don't care to go. I'm home about 8, just me and my radio. Ain't misbehaving, I'm saving my love for you. Jack Horner in a corner, don't go nowhere, what do I care? Your kisses are worth waiting for. But believe me, I don't stay out late, I don't care to go. I'm home about 8, just me and my radio. Ain't misbehaving, saving my love for you. Ain't misbehaving, I'm saving my love for you. No, 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 no.
Sit down for a moment. Oh. That's all right. I'm going to say a few words, don't want you to get tired. Now, that music came out of a style that emerged in Harlem called stride piano. Now, Mike over here, he's not playing stride piano. He's giving a little Django Reinhardt version of that. But it was a style that was suited to taking familiar songs and giving them a new depth and a new quality. Because these pianists, they essentially became bands unto themselves, with their left hand creating what the tuba would do in San Francisco or in New Orleans, and their right hand adding the improvisations of the clarinets or the trumpets. It was an athletic playing style, and some of these pianists would actually compete with each other after hours in cutting contests. See who could play the fastest and the fanciest. The ultimate genius, the one who put them all to shame, was Art Tatum, who was blind and managed to put more notes on the piano in 10 seconds than any other 10 pianists. And he stretched the music right up to where Errol Garner would take it, almost to the edge of bebop and modern jazz. But jazz, whatever it is, no matter how well performed, was never about perfection. It was never about technical mastery. That was fun, but that was never the point. It was about making something come alive in the music, something in that moment that can't be written down because it is as unknown as your next breath. The modern jazz pianist Thelonious Monk once said, "The piano ain't got no wrong notes." At worst, he said, "You're just making the wrong mistakes." There is in jazz, in all its forms, something akin to the black preacher, the rap artist, the poetry slammer. Each is actually hoping to get a form of glossolalia, speaking in tongues, an ecstatic utterance that can't be scripted in advance. It can be as slight as a little swing in a phrase or a bent note, even a catch in the throat in just the right moment. But it can be as grand as creating a new tune on the spot. But it always is about a person, a flesh and blood person, present in that moment, speaking honestly of who they are. Now, all music can do this. Jazz is just really good at it. And I think it's one of the things we've lost in music as we've gone toward recorded music, which is edited and perfected to the point where if you hear it different, you think it's not as good as the last time. We've gotten to the point where we think everything has to be done exactly right and exactly the same. My genre, which is classical music, is terrible at this. Glenn Gould, the great Canadian pianist, stopped performing because he was so anxious about making wrong notes that when he recorded, he'd go back and change individual notes to make sure they were perfect. I tried to be a classical pianist, but I couldn't be perfect, and that's one of the reasons I left. I wasn't good enough in that way. But the most memorable classical music moments for me are the imperfect moments. I went to see the Detroit Symphony play The Rite of Spring back in 1973, and they were not up to it. Sorry, they were not up to it. They were a symphony, but it's a monstrously difficult piece, and they made lots of mistakes. But I got to tell you, the energy of the instruments, the instrumentalists trying to do it right, was so intense that I was on the edge of my seat. The character of the music was present, even if some of the notes weren't exactly right. And just a few weeks ago, we had a pianist who came here to the Grand Rapids Symphony to play a very familiar Mozart concerto, and I was expecting it to be pleasant. But he added a little note here and a little note there, and he waited just a trifle long over here, and I was suddenly paying attention in a new way. And he made mistakes, but it became alive in a way a recording simply cannot be alive. It was real. It was real, not perfect. Because reality is imperfect. And jazz has always known that. And it has chosen to be real more than perfect. And the songs themselves talked about the imperfections of life, the mistakes, heartbreak, loneliness, tough times. These were part of jazz from the outset. One of the greatest artists in that genre was Billie Holiday, and you'll hear her words or her song of eloquence during the prayer, Good Morning Heartache, but you can choose almost any jazz song, and there's a sadness somewhere in it. Remember, hello, Dr. Jazz means you're sick and looking for help. But that song also reminds us that a key part of the medicine of jazz was humor, often self-deprecating, which is how you cope with tough times. Two Waller songs come right up to me and tell me about that kind of humor that tell us about how we cope with tough times. One of them is, I'm going to sit down and write myself a letter. That's a cute one. Then there's a pouty, childish one that comes after that, because it's mean, but it's fun. And it's called Your Feet's Too Big. I want you to hear both of them, and I want to hear them both. So can we hear those too?
I'm gonna sit right down and write myself a letter and make believe it came from you. I'm gonna write words oh so sweet, it's gonna knock me off my feet. Kisses on the bottom, I'll be glad I've got 'em. I'm gonna smile and say, I hope you're feeling better. And sign with love the way you do. I'm gonna sit right down and write myself a letter. I'm gonna make believe it came from you. Ba-dum-day, do-ba-ba-ba-ba-baby, do-do-boy. I'm gonna sit right down and write myself a letter and make believe it came from you. I'm gonna write words oh so sweet, they're gonna knock me off my feet. A million kisses on the bottom, I'll be glad I got 'em. I'm gonna smile and say, I hope you're feeling better. And sign with love the way you do. I'm gonna sit right down and write myself a text message. I'm gonna make believe it came. I'm gonna make believe it came. I'm gonna make believe it came from you. All right, here's the fun one. Up in Harlem at a table for two, there was 4 of us, baby. Me, your big feet, and you. From your ankles up, I say you are sweet. From there down, you're just too much feet. Oh, your feet's too big. Don't want you 'cause your feet's too big. Mad at you 'cause your feet's too big. I really hate you 'cause your feet's too big. La da da da, da 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 da. Where'd you get 'em? La da 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 da. Your girl, she likes you. She thinks you're nice. You've got what it takes to take her to paradise. Yeah. She says she likes your face. She loves your rig. But look at them. Your feet are too big. Oh, your feet's too big. Don't want you 'cause your feet's too big. Mad at you 'cause your feet's too big. I really hate you 'cause your feet's too big. Whoa, your pedal extremities are colossal. To me, you look just like a fossil. You got me walking, talking, and squawking 'cause your feet's too big. Can't go anywhere with you 'cause your feet's too big. Can't lie in the bed next to you 'cause your feet's too big. Just look at them. Look at them. Spread all across the floor. When you gonna die? Ain't nobody gonna sob. The undertaker's gonna have quite a job. You gonna look funny when they lay you in the basket. Look at them big feet. Stick it up out the basket. Oh, your feet's too big. Don't want you 'cause your feet's too big. Mad at you 'cause your feet's too big. I really hate you 'cause your feet's too big. Come on and sing it with me. Your feet's too big. Don't want you 'cause your feet's too big. Mad at you 'cause your feet's too big. I really hate you 'cause your feet's too big. Your pedal extremities are obnoxious.
For the record, I got 13s. And they're getting bigger with age. My late father-in-law apparently said to my future wife, before we were married, obviously, he'd be a lot taller if we weren't so much turned under at the end. Now, let me observe right now that when Fats Waller sings that, it gets a little wicked because he's commenting on a woman. So we should be alert that what sounds delightful coming out of Miss Edie could be a little bit discomforting coming out of a man. And that's what jazz does. It makes the gender of the singer, if not fluid, it makes it different. And so I thank you, because by you singing it, we could laugh legitimately. It would have been hard to laugh if a man had been singing that. But that's the nature of jazz. You can see both light and dark. You can feel the sweet and the sour at the same time. But even in spite of the wickedness in the lyric, there was still something of love in it as well. Also in that, sit right down and write myself a letter. Here's someone who was lonesome for someone who was not writing to him or her. And writing himself, herself a letter and making believe it came from you. Love is always lurking in all of these songs, whether it's heartache or loneliness, pining or gratitude. Love, whether it's lost or found, struggling or silly, love is always somewhere in jazz. What makes jazz what it is that even this love is never perfect, and yet it still saves us. And imperfect love is better than no love at all. Better to love someone with big feet than to love no one at all. Because we need love, imperfect love, because even imperfect love is redemptive. That's something that Dr. King understood very deeply. And for that, we have one more Waller song, and then one by Duke Ellington. The Waller song is Honeysuckle Rose, and he's speaking to his beloved, or her beloved, as the case may be, and kind of buttering him or her up a little bit, but it's honest. And then in Satin Doll, you have someone who loves, but is also a little unsure, a little jealous, but they're both love. Can we have a little love, Miss Edie, Mr. Mike?
Oh, every honeybee feels with jealousy when they see you out with me. I don't blame them. Goodness knows, honey. Suckle rose. When you're passing by, flowers droop and sigh, and I know the reason why. You're much sweeter. Goodness knows, honey. Suckle rose. Don't buy sugar. You just have to touch my cup. You're my sugar, so sweeter when you're staring taking sips from your tasty lips. Ooh, the honey bear led your reps, your confection. Goodness knows, honey, sugar rose. You're my sugar. You just have to touch my cup. You're my sugar. So sweet when you stir it up. When I'm taking sips from your tasty lips. Oh, the honey bear left your reps. Your confection. Goodness knows, honey, sugar rose. You're much sweeter. Goodness knows, you're my honey. Sugar rose. Cigarette holders, which wigs me over my shoulder. He digs me out, cattin', that's satin down. Oh, baby, shall we go out skipping? Careful, amigo, your Philippine speaks Latin. That's satin down. Well, he's nobody's fool, 'cause he's playing it cool as can be. I'll give it a whirl, but I ain't for no boy catching me. Swift Rooney telephone numbers. Well, you know, playing my rumbas with Uno and that in my satin down. That dom 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 dwe dwe fa do ba dwe sho do ba dwe ba 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 do ba dwe dom do ya da da bo bo baby bo 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 baby do do ba dwe oh shum den de oh boy bo 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 baby do bo bo baby do da da dwe do da da do baby ba 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 do do. Well, he's nobody's fool, 'cause he's playing it cool as can be. I'll give it a whirl, but I ain't for no boy catching me. Sweet Rooney telephone numbers. Well, you know, playing my rumbas with Uno and that in my satin down.
Now it's time for y'all to take a little rest. I have a few more words. Jazz, in whatever form, embraces our imperfect life as it is, that we're fine to be who we are right now. Jazz sees the pain of life, the pain we endure, and even the pain we can inflict. And it promises no cure, but it shows us we can survive, how we can survive, sometimes even thrive in spite of all that life throws at us. As long ago as Jelly Roll Morton and King Oliver, jazz has been the medicine for the soul battered and the life burdened, because it tells the truth about life and still finds a way to keep going. That's because jazz is where mistakes in life and music are okay. The task is not to rid life or music of mistakes, but to make new life and new music from those mistakes. Do you all remember that it was a mistake that gave us the telephone and penicillin? Sometimes our errors are the best things we could have done. And as I think about it, that's what religion should do too. Take our fallings and failings, our mistakes, our errors, even our worst pieces, and make them into something that wouldn't have existed without them. People screw up, all of them, even us. They always have, they always will, and that means there will always be hurt feelings, heartaches, betrayal, loss, abuse, and even violence. Dr. Jazz and religion are not here to cure sin, but to give us the means to keep going in the midst of it. Music matters to me, but the same way religion matters to me, because they both say we can find meaning and beauty and purpose in the midst of our mistakes and imperfections, not despite them, and in some ways, because of them. So I guess the message this morning is perfection is the wrong goal in life, and it's the wrong goal in music, and it's the wrong goal in religion, because it leaves no room for improvement. If you heard the same song over and over again and it never changed, no matter how perfect it was, you'd be bored to death. Mistakes open the possible. Jazz embodies redemption, that there can be a future that we don't know. It takes mistakes and makes them into music that wouldn't exist before. Liberal religion is in this game too, or at least it should be, because an open and learning faith is going to make mistakes. It has to. We're just making it up as we go. We can't get it all right. But that means there is room for hope. As I prepare to leave as your spiritual leader, I hope this is a lesson you can keep. Love your imperfection. Rejoice in your mistakes. Fall flat on your face, but fall forward in life, not backward. We're all going to get messed up, bruised, hurt. We're going to hurt others along the way, but if we keep moving, there will be music and there will be hope. Because we make music from the wrong notes, because they were never wrong in the first place. They were just waiting for a chord that made sense, because we know that medicine for the soul is always going to be coming from Dr. Jazz. He's got what I need. I know he has. When I'm feeling down and I've got the blues, he's the one that makes me put on both my dancing shoes. The more I get, the more I want it seems. I see Dr. Jazz in all my dreams. Don't you want a church like that? I do. I hope you do. Because Dr. Jazz can save us all. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be found true in thy sight. Thou art my rock and my redeemer. And before I start on our prayer, I want to give my profoundest respect to my colleagues in preaching this morning, because when they sing in a moment or two, that will be as the end of the prayer and not an appropriate place for applause. So I don't want you to feel bad about not applauding. So here is your moment to thank the other preachers this morning. And I understand you hold church from time to time in other locations, am I correct? Use your microphone. When will you next be holding forth, Ms. Edie Evans?
So it may not be in a church per
Oh,
se,
yeah.
but we hold church a lot of different places. Where are we going to be next? I can tell you where I want you to come. I think it's May 17th, which should be a Sunday. We're going to be at the Listening Room. I don't know if you've been to the Listening Room, but for that room to be successful, we need all of you all to be there. Mm-hmm. So I think it's May 17th. It's a Sunday night. They'll be advertising it. And the rest of the time, we're at the Marriott and the Amway. So just call and find out when we are holding church.
Yep. And I expect Dr. Jazz will be dispensing medicine for the soul each and every time.
Absolutely.
All righty. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Let us bring this hour of worship to fullness by offering our hearts in a time of prayer, gratitude, and silence. Ancient of days, fount of every blessing, the one who makes the notes come out of the instruments and the words come out of our mouths. We offer gratitude this morning for the gift of music, music that is imperfect but ever so real, music that speaks from to the soul, the heart, the struggles of life. It gives dignity to our losses, comfort to our sorrows, and hope to our fears. Everything we do can be an instrument in your hands, a note in a song, a phrase that can give that kind of hope to others. In this room each and every week are those who are staggering, limping, halt, and lame in some form or another, who are knowing the pain that life inevitably dishes out, pains of body and of heart, doubts of mind and soul. We do not seek to be cured, but we do seek to be cared for, to know the kindness that would make the moment of sorrow or pain a little easier to bear, that we not be alone in the tough times, and feel that we are never left to ourselves in the lonesome times. Our prayer is that our ears will hear the music of hope at every moment, that our lips will repeat it so others may hear it, that somehow we may be part of that great orchestra, that band, that song that takes all of our struggles and sorrows, all our loves and losses, and gives us the courage and the hope to continue. And so we pray. And we give ear to the prayer of Irene Higginbottom and Irvin Drake and Dan Fisher, who through the voice of that song pray for us now.
Good morning, heartache. You old gloomy side. Good morning, heartache. Thought we said goodbye last night. I tossed and turned until it seemed you had gone. But here you are with the dawn. Wish I'd forget you, but you're here to stay. It seems I met you when my love went away. Now every day I start by saying to you, good morning, heartache. What's new? Stop haunting me now. Can't shake you no how. Just leave me alone. I've got those Sunday blues, straight through Monday blues. Good morning, heartache. Here we go again. Good morning, heartache. You're the one who knew me when. Might as well get used to you hanging around. Good morning, heartache. Sit down.
We pause to give gratitude for those whose lives came to their conclusion at this time and this year and other years, for the gift of their presence in this church, for their enduring presence in the spirit of this community. And lift up the names especially of F. Allen Hutchinson, of Nancy Hamilton, Diane Rogers, Phil Hammer, David Boyce, Esther De Archangel, Jerry DeWitt, Nancy Baumbach, Fred Moen, June Dole, Jim Banta, and Connie Williams. God, filled with mercy, dwelling in the heavens' heights, bring proper rest beneath the wings of your Shekinah to the souls of our beloved and our blameless, who have gone to their eternal rest. May you, who are the source of mercy, shelter them beneath your wings eternally. Bind their souls to you and to we the living, that they may rest in peace, that we may be at peace. And let us say amen. And now would you bless this hour together as we join our voices in song in hymn number 74, On the Dusty Earth Drum.
Oh
Indeed, God is the great musician, and we be notes within that eternal symphony. We ask that the blessing of that truth be upon us, that the power of that love direct us and sustain us, and that the peace of that music preserve our going and our coming until we meet again, knowing that this day and every day is a day which the Lord has made. Let us ever rejoice and be glad in it. Amen.